So my different experiences of being here in Leipzig, this is the longest period I've been here. The first one was for a month, the second one was for 2 months, and this time it's 5 months. It's been, I think if I would describe anything, I mean, Leipzig is one thing, being a part of Leipzig and being a part of the larger Saxony is one thing, but I think for me the experience has also been a lot about being in Leer and the different groups of people that I've experienced and met during that period of time here. So my project, my artistic project has been based on one, my social environment, but also two, who I came into contact and how that developed. And they were very different experiences and very surprising in some way. I mean, I was really, the last time when I came, I was really surprised by how open an environment it was, in the sense that everything that I seemed to try to do seemed to work. So I had these wonderful experiences of museums kind of opening up to me and being open to participating in my project, which I don't think I would have experienced anywhere else. Or I haven't experienced in the short amount of time anywhere else. The one example is with Terra Mineralia, where I was supposed to work with another institution in Leipzig, and then I came there and the man said, no, we're not going to do the recording today. And I had like a week and a half left. And he said, you must go to Freiberg. And I had no idea where Freiberg was, but he said, you must drive to Freiberg. It's an hour and a half away. And I was like, okay. And what do I do when I get to Freiberg? Well, do I talk to the director? What do I do? How do I go about it? He was like, no, you just talk to the people on the ground personnel. That's how we do it here in Saxony. We do not have these power systems. I was like, okay, all right, I'll do it your way. And fair enough, that's exactly what happened. And a week later, I was already filming in the museum and filming some of the objects, and yeah, so it was the fastest turnaround I've ever had, ever. So how can one not be open to that type of participation? You do something and people are actually reacting. Yeah.
So, yeah, in relation to these experiences you had, could you talk about a bit about your work and why you did it and the contents of it?
Well, I mean, I think an important part in my work has always been trying to make connecting different histories together and connecting different positions and thoughts and different perspectives together, so that they're not separate in different locations, but that they actually become some kind of uniformed groundwork in which to portray them or to discuss. I had been in Australia to do a project, which Australia is not my own culture. I'm coming from a Jamaican background. But I wanted to connect this project with these collections that are both in Terra Mineralia and in Gracie Museum. And I wanted to look at the Terra Mineralia in regards to their minerals and all the minerals that are taken out of been taken out of Australia, and connect that to their thoughts and their perspectives of where these minerals are coming from, and as well as the cultures that they are attached to. So the project is titled Mineral Emissaries, which in itself is talking about that these stones in actuality become ambassadors for these cultures, or for this culture, which is a multiplicity of different cultures within the culture, but I would talk about, I'm looking at also the connections that in the previous film which I made, which was called In the Deep Underground and Up Above, which was about the histories connected to land and to caves and to being these different layers of positions within a societal makeup. So within, you know, what are the histories that have sort of created the schisms and the problems and the discussions that arise out of being a post-colonial country such as Australia? And how do people relate to that, but also how have their lives been affected by it? And so this is one perspective, but I also want to connect it back to perspectives of people from here and how they are looking at these objects or minerals or entities of culture. How are they relating to Australia? Or are they relating to Australia? Or are they relating to the stone itself? Or how do they look at the minerals? And in what way do they work with them? And also looking at their connections to caves, since mining is done in most caving, and Freiberg is a huge cave mining industry, which it was, I mean, basically the whole museum and institution was built up on it. So it does have a kind of history also in regards to mining, and also looking at the environmental impact that it will have upon the society, but also their community. So they have their juxtapositions that they can be related to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So your work is always entwined with the places you work in. So what can you say about working in Leipzig and its relation to the people in this city towards your work?
Well, I think it depends on the sense of that when I have sort of, for instance, with Gracie Museum, I started working with Birgit, who's the curator for the Australian collection. And then it becomes sort of like investigating also her life story, investigating how did she start doing what she's doing and why is she interested in doing what she's doing. And it's also tied in every way to her history as well, also back to DDR and what it was like to be a curator at that time. What did it mean to look at other cultures at that time? And since you weren't allowed to travel, I found it bizarre from my point of view to be curator of a collection, but of a collection that you'd never traveled to that country before. And then later on, she began working and developing her contacts and her relationships with different groups of people in specific areas in Australia. And then also, how did that open her mindset or her evaluation or thinking about these other cultures? And how has it influenced also the way that she reflects on what she's doing? One of the things that are the most important things that she's working on is reparations, and which is a very heavy subject area, where she's looking at the large collection of human remains which still exist within the Gracie Museum, and which is about approximately, it started out as a collection of 6,000 human beings that still needed to be returned to their respective families. And how do you go about doing such a thing in a proper way? First of all, it's not a funny situation to be in, and how do you address that contentious space, which it is? How do you give some kind of morality or some kind of peace to the families? One is that she uses forensic medicine as a way to find out what happened to these people and how did they arise in the museum. The other is that she uses archives, and it's a combination of different methods. And then once you find out the history of the journey of this, or the passage of this individual, then you also have to think about how do you bring people into this museum in a way which also will be respective of their own cultural values and ethics and thoughts. So it is it's probably one of the heaviest issues you can deal with, probably as a curator of such a collection. And so it demands a certain type of person and a certain type of ethical character to do so.
Okay, perfect. And the last thing is, how have you been working here in the Spinnerei, and how does that affect your work? By being, I don't know, surrounded by artist studios and a very vibrant and dedicated to arts environment.
Well, I think that the wonderful thing is to be in an artistic environment where you're actually having a relationship to the people that you're working alongside. So you're also seeing the developments of other people's work. And I mean, it's also changing because, of course, I've been here for a while, so different types of people come in. So you have the painter group. I call it the painter group because then it becomes, I could feel like in the beginning everybody was a painter, and so there was a kind of it becomes this, I'm fighting against other forms of art. So I had to deal with where the second group was different. It changed and it became more photographic, sculptural, and therefore it didn't become a part, it wasn't a discussion about what type of subject area you worked with or what kind of medium you worked with, but more of the content of the work. It influenced me in terms of color and palettes and the way that people are working visually, light, darkness. But how does it influence you? I don't know. I think the thing is that you having an enormous amount of space and time to sort of really experiment with certain methods that possibly you can't experiment in my home place because I don't have that big a studio, makes it easier to sort of contemplate a method for a longer process and a longer period of time. You're not cleaning up all the time, but you actually can work through an idea.
Okay, very last question. And why do you think that an organization like LIA is beneficial to people like you?
It is beneficial in the sense of, for people like me, is that, well, there's a lot of, there are different things that came out of the experience that I felt was really well done this time, was that I felt that I really had a lot more curatorial critiques, which were really beneficial and really meaningful for me, in the sense of people use time to really sort of put themselves into my work and to talk about it and to discuss so I think without Leah, I would never have come in contact with these people. That's one. Two, being able to, there's a lot done to make, even though I wasn't participant in all of the activities, there's a lot of activities done to make artists aware of their environment and aware of the different artistic shows and things that are possibilities that are there. And you have a great group of staff who are friendly and nice and warm and willing to take on all kinds of issues no matter what. So yes, it's a home environment, and I think that for an artist can be a really nice aspect to be away from home, but be also in a place where it feels familiar.
Okay, thank you, Michelle, and good luck for your project.
Thank you.